Today, I want to talk about something controversial. Solar panels. Now, everyone knows that solar panels are just an invention by Big Green to convert the world into a world of beta humans who can't think for themselves. It's also just an excuse for Big Green to pick on the little guy, aka crude oil and fossil fuels. Alright, in reality, I think solar energy is neat. Really, I think all forms of renewable energy are neat, and while they aren't perfect, I do think the sooner we get changed over, the better. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about solar panels in gaming. The idea for this video came about one night when I was just eating pizza and looking at random stuff on Wikipedia. Just finished reading about Game Boy accessories when I decided to look up Game Gear accessories, and that's when I came across the solar gear, which I'll cover a little later in this video, but the article I was reading mentioned a solar-powered battery pack for the Game Boy, which obviously led me to the question, what other solar-powered shenanigans has the gaming industry developed? So, for this video, I won't be including any hacks or modifications people have made. While those are impressive, I really want to focus on industry-produced stuff. I wasn't able to find a whole lot, and I know everything I'm going to cover has been talked about before, but shut up. I'm still making this video. Also, I want to preface this by saying I unfortunately do not have any of the games or devices I'm going to be talking about. Let's start at the beginning. One of the earliest instances of mainstream solar-powered gaming I can find is from 1982. Now, I tried not to just use Wikipedia for this, but every resource I found online linked back to Wikipedia, so Wikipedia it is. Now, I did try looking for some magazine articles, but I wasn't able to find anything that didn't already say what Wikipedia said. I did find a copy of Bandai's 1982 Toy Fair catalog, though it was a reduced copy, and it's linked in the description below. It only showed handhelds, which pretty fitting considering the handhelds are the only solar-powered gaming I was able to find. The Bandai LCD Solar Power games were among the first solar-powered games. In fact, they're credited as the first solar-powered games. They were very rudimentary, your standard LCD game, but they did take advantage of the recently reinvigorated solar energy market. A quick history for solar energy is that interest in it has been around since the 1800s. But around World War I and into the 1930s, interest declined, mostly due to, resource shortage in World War I and the discovery of an abundance of crude oil in the 1930s. And obviously oil will never run out, so forget renewable energy. Anyway, these were, as I said, just your basic LCD games, much like the Game & Watch. There's not a whole lot going on or a whole lot to talk about, but I still think they're neat. It's also interesting to note that certain models, like the Bandai LCD Frankenstein, have layered panels that give a sort of pseudo 3D effect, while also allowing for different level layouts. Our next big advancement, or at least the next interesting usage I could find, was for rechargeable battery packs in the 1990s. We'll start with the Game Boy, as many of its battery packs came out before the Game Gears. Many of the solar-powered battery packs sold also shared a similar design, and we don't really know who originally came up with it. We also have some crisp pictures, thanks to Reddit user Itsy. I think that's how you spell it. Their original post is linked in the description as well. So this particular model I'll be showing is from 1992. Interestingly, there's a pass-through for headphones. What I think is neat, and what Itsy points out, is that this is an optional pass-through. You can just push down the plug if you wish to use the built-in Game Boy speakers. There's also a speaker grill on the back. I don't have a picture of it, but it's assumed that this is so the sound can still get through the plastic body. Now on the side we can see a headphone port, a port for AC charging, and a charging indicator. At first glance, it's funny that they included an AC port, since that kind of defeats the solar energy aspect, but it makes sense when you think about it. Commercially available solar technology in the 90s was not exactly the best or the most efficient, so the AC port adds more functionality to an otherwise novel product. Here we have a picture of the solar panel. You'll notice a crack, which was actually Itzy's fault, though he later said that it still works, so that's pretty good. And then of course, here's the Game Boy in the actual device. Now, I do think this is a neat piece of gaming history, and I would love to get my hands on one. And it doesn't even seem that hard or expensive, really, to get one. But I gotta admit, I do like the Solar Gear more. In my humble opinion, the Solar Gear is by far the cooler design. Unlike the Game Boy battery packs, we actually know exactly who designed the Solar Gear. It was a company called Innovation, and they actually released their own Game Boy battery pack, which I know because I searched it up on eBay and found one complete in box. We also happen to know the launch price of the Solar Gear, which I think is cool, and we know this thanks to an archived copy of the December 1993 edition of GamePro. The Solar Gear retailed for $49.95, which isn't too bad considering it was using better solar technology than in the 80s, but it was still a third of the console's launch price. And I'll have a link in the description to all my sources. Now, much like the Game Boys, the Solar Gear also had an AC port in addition to a car adapter, and both were included in the box, unlike the Game Boys, which did not include the AC adapter in the box. What makes me think the Solar Gear is cooler than its Game Boy equivalent is the fact that the Solar Gear can output in stereo without the use of headphones. Now, it's speculated that this is because of how it wraps around the Game Gear, so it's because of a hardware limitation, but I still think it's cool nonetheless. Now we jump forward to the radical 2000s, to the ancient year of 2003. Yes, it's every gaming channel's favorite oddity to talk about, Bhaktai, The Sun is in Your Hand. Now this game has been talked about to death, so I will not cover it in depth. There are plenty of videos doing that. But what you need to know about the game is that it uses both a clock and a photometric light sensor, aka a solar sensor. The gimmick of the game is that you have to use sunlight to charge your weapon. The game uses the clock to know when it's nighttime in your time zone, which is another piece of information the game asks for, and that's when enemies roam the world. It's also just a very cool concept that the enemies are based around real time on a Game Boy. I just think it's really cool. Now, the use of a solar sensor was really a novel idea for a game, and it's remembered fondly for it. There were even 2 more sequels on the GBA that added on to this mechanic, and while I've never played any of them, it would be nice to try one day. After that, the trend of solar-powered gaming kinda dies off. The majority of solar power in gaming becomes more of either a generalized or individual effort. For example, there are solar battery packs for the 3DS, but only because adapters for USB to 3DS charging exist. When I talk about individual efforts, I'm referring to the hacks and modifications I mentioned earlier. Like I said, these are amazing and they are definitely worthy of attention, but they're not the focus of this video. The focus of this video was just what the industry has published and produced featuring solar panels in gaming. Kind of a weird topic for a video, I guess, but, you know, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. If you liked this sort of thing, this sort of random off-the-wall topic, let me know in the comments. I'm thinking of trying to do more, but let me know what you think. And until next time, stay cool.